did you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today I'm going to be showing you the Morrowind update for the original newer player Dragon Knight. Now this is basically set for sustain, which isn't too bad, survivability, which is very good, including his resistant health and all that kind of stuff, and also above all damage. Now he's not made to do the highest damage in the game, of course, but he's meant to survive and do enough to pass anything you put him into. Now this is primarily for the maelstrom guys that want to farm maelstrom with a DK but don't have the weapons, if you want to go down that route, but also for newer players that have access to not all the shiny gear and still want to be able to perform on par with the guys at the top. This is capable of performing in dungeons, trials and maelstrom with no trouble whatsoever in comparison to what is already out there. In fact, in terms of DPS, if you want to go flat numbers, this is capable of up to 34k DPS on its own with no buffs, just your own stuff, if you get solid rotations. But that's not the point of the build, it's just an example to say that it can perform, so don't panic. You can use this all the way through the game, and then when you get to the end and you get all the shiny stuff, you might not even want to switch out anyway. So let's go over the stats to start with. Just pop a potion real quick. 20.5, almost 20.6k health, 38.6k stamina, which is huge, 68.1% crit, and almost 4k weapon damage, alongside so-so resist, considering we don't have a resist buff on at the moment. 64 points into stamina, increased health and stamina food, so we're using max health, max stam food, Thief Munderstone, and yes, of course, as per usual, I am a stage 4 vampire. You don't have to be stage 4, 4's for PvP essentially, I guess, but there's a lot of messing around if you want to keep between 3 and 4 all the time. If you want to keep 3 or 2 or whatever, you have to keep sating that level by either using skills or using certain foods. Don't bother messing with it, just stay out of the fire. You'll get a lot more benefits from stage 3 plus anyway. Now, skills. Now if you're already familiar with the skills, then you're probably just going to have a quick look at it and move on, but if you're not, then I'm going to explain how to use them, why they're there, and what they do. Now, first of all, we have Venom Claw, which is a very powerful single target DK dot. Does poison damage, which we excel in, and this particular skill progressively improves its damage over time, increased by 12% every 2 seconds, so make sure that lasts a full duration. Beast Trap, again, I use this on nearly every build I have, but this improves your crit damage by 10%, and especially in the Maelstrom, it's very, very handy as long as you've got the stamina to do it at the time, because you put it down and it stuns the target. So you could have an ad here and one here, you just pin him, kill this one, and then come back to him, and you just saw part of the build there. That is for later. But anyway, when that's down, it can stun things if it's not a boss, but above all, while it's active, it can rearm. So it pops once, puts the mud crab in it, holds him still for 6 seconds or however long, and does 6 seconds worth of increased crit damage for you. Once that disappears, it lets him go, and then it rearms and it can grab him again, or whoever else walks into it. There's a little trick for these, especially in Maelstrom. If you have one here, and something's trapped in it, you can cast another one over here. Now obviously, as you can see, the old one's gone. But if this was to trap a target, the rearmed version of it is not the same as that. So you can have one here, let it pop, and put another one down, you now have 2. So, Flames of Oblivion, this one's actually very important to the build. Not necessarily for now, but for later. I mean, at the moment, yes, it does give you crit, yes, it does give you a decent amount of damage every 5 seconds, and yes, this does base off of your max resources, so the higher the stamina, the more damage it does. And it goes into play with some of our passives, which I'll explain in a moment. But there is a set that we're using that currently works off of certain types of skills, don't quite know why, but it does, and has done for a long time, and it still works. When they finally fix it, and it won't work off that skill anymore, this will already be on your rotation, and it does work off of this as intended, so keep this on your bar. Bloodthirst, this is very, very important. I don't spam this as much as I would inside of a end game rotation, perhaps, if I was using different gear, but I do use this as a little bit of a gap filler inside a rotation, and I also use it as a heal, because it's very, very powerful. It does 5 stabs, and then a big one at the end, or 4 and then a huge one, and the damage at the end, you have to make sure the last ability hits, or the last hit connects. You have to make sure it connects. If it does, you'll heal for 60% of the damage done, and that is quite a big bonus. It's very, very nice, especially for your health sustain, instead of just spamming Vigor all the time, which is coming. Also, another dual wield death over time, 9 seconds long. It's a bleed, so it goes through physical resistances, and it heals you once every 2 seconds as well. Obviously, the higher your weapon damage, or the higher your healing received, and all that kind of stuff, the more aggressive that heal will be, and also the dot as well. Flawless Stormbreaker is your main front bar ultimate. This is an oh shit button if you need resources quickly. And I'll explain that in the passives also. It's a decent damage over time and area of effect for 5 seconds. Has a big hit in the initial cast, and also increases your weapon damage by 5% for having it on your bar at the time. It's very cheap as well. It's 125 ultimate, but don't spam this. Don't use it unless you have to. Like if you're really like the boss is nearly dead or you're nearly dead. Resolving Vigor. This is the morph of the original name is called Vigor, I believe. You get it from PvP, yes. You have to get a few alliance points, maybe a couple of hours of grinding either Cyrodiil or Battlegrounds or whatever. If you don't like PvP, that's fair enough, but just go in there, persist for a couple of hours, get this, and then don't go back. It's up to you. But this comes from alliance points. After you get a certain amount of alliance points, like every couple levels or so in the alliance points skill lines, you'll unlock a level or so of support and assault. And that's where you get them from, which is here. But basically it's a big heal for you, and the area of effect as well heals other people, up to 6 I believe. So trials and dungeons, if it's a no shit moment and people around you are dying, keep an eye on their health bar, don't just rely on healer. Give them a hand. It's a really nice skill. Poison injection, this has been moved in the skill lines. It's down the bottom of the bow skills now, so it takes quite a bit of XP to get there. You need to max bow out really to get the most out of it, but basically this is a damage over time skill, and it needs to be on the target all the time. Yes, if you note at the bottom, it does get more aggressive the lower the enemy's health, so it hits really, really hard on low health targets, so technically it's an execute, but it does decent damage over time the whole time as well, regardless of how much health they've got, so keep this on the target all the time. Also, based on the sets we're using, this is also a very important skill to be using, because we have increased poison damage. Noxus Breath, this not only debuffs the target, giving them major fracture, reducing their physical resistances by 5280, but it also is an area of effect in a cone, death over time for 10 seconds, and it's poison damage. It has an initial hit and then a spread. So this initial hit will hurt them, and then it will tick over time and apply major fracture. So you look at his health bar, you'll see that it'll crack. He's debuffed. You can see the 8-second timer, that little purple thing with a circle, that's the debuff. So anything you do, physical or poison, will hit a lot harder while that skill is active. It's 10 seconds long. You need that to be on the target. In a trial, yes, a tank may be using this, but you can still use it. You'll just use it for damage rather than a debuff. Unless, of course, you want to switch to caltrops, but that's a different story. Ignis Shield, this one's essential. Now, if you cast it, you get Major Mending for 3 seconds. What that does is, you put this on, see the little yellow and green flashy buff in the bottom? That one there? That's Major Mending. As long as the shield is on you, you'll get that for 3 seconds. And what that does is improves your heals by 25%, including this, and your Rapid Strikes, or Bloodthirst, sorry, and your Blood Craze as well. So this here and this here, you have to be quick, but they do benefit from that buff. So if you quickly pop that on, switch, and then give them a quick Rapid Strikes, I'll call it that because that's what the other morph people usually pick is, then you'll actually benefit from that. But above all, especially for Maelstrom, shield first, then Vigor. You'll see this is 11k. And if I buff up with a damage buff, that's now 12. Now if I use the Ignis Shield, that's now 15. So shield, then heal. Now just to confirm, who's this? Hello. Hold on. Where's my hello? There it is. What you can do also, when you switch bars, it is based off of whatever weapons you're holding at the time. Obviously, we're holding dual wield, and they're a lot more stronger than a bow. So when we go igneous, switch, I don't know if I'll get there quick enough. We'll try again. Not fast enough. All I need to do is this. There you go, 17k heal. So it's huge. I don't even know if we had a potion running then. Probably not. 18.3k. So I know that was a little tricky to do, but basically when you fire it, you're going to do this. You can fire, heal, switch bars. You'll hit it, heal, switch bars. You got still major mending is up for at least 2 ticks of that skill. So for 2 ticks of it, you're going to get the most heal you possibly can while you're on your own. It's tricky to practice with, but you want to shield, heal. Whoop, missed it. Shield, heal, or shield, dodge, roll, heal is what I usually do. And then swap bars while you're on the run. So yeah, it will take a little bit of practice, but for argument's sake, you've got a mob firing at you from here, who I just killed, sorry. From here. Shield, dodge, roll, heal, swap. Major Mend is still running for at least a second after that, so you'll get a big burst heal. Failing that, just remember to always fire that before the heal. You won't get the full 18, obviously, but it will help. Okay, now I've confused people with that. Endless Hail. This is ridiculously powerful. It is a damage over time. It's a volley that goes on the floor. Obviously, if you're on your front bar, you get more damage, so you have to be switching over to front bar quite quickly. But it's the quickest dot we have. It's every half a second for 10 seconds, so you get 20 ticks out of that. That needs to be on the target at all times if you can help it. I know in Maelstrom, of course, things are moving around a lot and they run in and out of it, etc, etc. But if anything's stationary, ding that on it. Get a beast trap down and smash them up. Make sure that this is reapplied just after or just before it runs out, because it's very, very strong. You don't want it to lose DPS for not having it on. In a trial, however, you will probably be pretty stationary on most of the fights unless you're moving around, in which case just make sure it's under the boss all the time. But I'll get to rotations and stuff later. Standard of Might. Now this is your strongest ultimate that you have, and I'll show you the passives in a moment, but whilst this is down, it does loads of flame damage in area of effect. It reduces the healing received of the boss or target or player, whichever you're up against, and also it increases all of your damage that you are doing by 15%. Now the trick to this is not to just fire it off and do nothing, or fire it off while nothing's happening. The trick is to get your dots down, get stuff on the target. Now these are all running, fire down that banner and then start your rotation again. All the damage that is already being applied will then boost as soon as that banner hits the ground, and then everything you do from then on will be boosted by a further 15%, obviously, for having it on the floor while you're doing your damage for 17 seconds, so it's quite a lot. I don't think I've got anywhere near enough ultimate to even show you, but I'll show you on the skeleton in a moment. Another skill you can use, and this is especially for Maelstrom, for those people that aren't that comfortable using the banner, you can use corrosive armor, and we do have enough for that. Does this. Turns you into a nice poison mess for 10 seconds. Now what that does is ridiculous. All of the incoming damage that you receive, no matter how hard it is, only hits you for 3% of your max health. And it does a decent amount of poison damage in area of effect nearby enemies, and it lasts 10.8 seconds. This is basically your immortal button for a short period of time. Decent damage, and of course all of your attacks affect the target as though the target has 0 resistance. So you hit as hard as you can while this is running. Not only is this an oh shit button, but based on how the build is set up, this can actually perform just as well as the banner with our sets that we have on. Now, it doesn't boost all of our damage, of course, by 15%, but it does remove resistances from the target that you're hitting as such, based on the fact that you have 100% penetration on them. So it's very, very powerful. Now, for any other DK build, I wouldn't recommend this as an actual DPS ultimate. I'd use it as a survival one, but for yourselves, with the setup which we're going to get to, this is very, very strong. I think that's it for the skills that we're using. Now, there are some variations to this. If you're not using Flames of Oblivion, which you probably should be, you can switch to Evil Hunter, which will give you a little bit more weapon damage, but you'll just have the passive crit. But I'd recommend just having this on anyway, because 1, it does damage, and 2, you get the same crit bonus. You just lose a little bit of weapon damage. The other options are also, if you're having trouble with area of effect damage, slap this on instead, and that will reduce income and area of effect damage by 25%, so you're quite tanky with this on. So that's situational, of course, depending on the fight, especially with trials and dungeons and stuff. Also, Steel Tornado. You can slot this if you like, instead of Flames of Oblivion, depending on what you're up against. If you're going for quick kills, Steel Tornado is quite good, but you have to watch your sustain because it's quite expensive. But that's also another choice you can make. It's technically an execute, does decent damage, but if the lower the target's health, the more damage this does. So, get them when they're low. But again, I would recommend this for now, until you get a little bit more practice in. One other skill you can switch out is for trials, this is, and that is, oops, wrong skill line, Molten Armaments. Now, of course, we do have to heavy attack for our sustain, and this boosts your heavy attacks by 40% extra damage. Now, it's not a massive bonus for us specifically, because it did nerf the amount of damage the heavy attacks do, but it does close the gap while you're trying to sustain and gives you a decent amount. Above all, obviously, inside a trial, this also gives everyone around you, or 6 people, major sorcery, so you're buffing them as well. And I'll get to the passives as to what this does and why it's so important. But in Maelstrom, use this instead. Use Igneous Shields. And you'll just have to heavy attack for your sustain rather than sustain and damage combined. You just have to mix it up a bit. But this and this are both very important in different situations, and I'm about to show you why. Let's go to the passives up here first. Get every single one of these without fail, because they contribute to your burning and poison damage. So fire damage, poison damage, all very important. There's a snare there, but that's not necessarily relevant. But get them all anyway. These all improve the damage of what you do with flame and poison, and especially this one as well. It increases your ardent flame abilities, durations as well, which is quite nice. And also increases their damage. Now we do use quite a few of those. One here, one here, one here, and of course the banner as well. They all count. So get all those. Draconic Power. Get this one because it reduces the amount of damage you receive when you block. Spell resistance goes without saying, you're going to need that. These two not so important because we're not really using Draconic Power ability. Although, if you do take off this, I would put this resist buff on somewhere if you can, because it then applies a certain magic damage that will proc the set we're using. At the moment you don't need to, but when they fix it you probably will, so that's just an option for you to consider later on. Also, it's not that bad having really high resists anyway, and in Maelstrom you might want to do it. Up to you. But there's a swap out for you. When they finally fix it, you can keep this on, but if you want to switch it to Deadly Cloak, then obviously we don't have a magic ability that does damage, so put the resist buff on. But that's another story. When it happens, I'll make a video about it. Earthen Heart. Increases duration of them. Ignis Shield lasts longer, Molten Armaments last longer, Corrosive Armor lasts longer, your ultimate, etc. That makes sense. Battle Roar. The higher the cost of the ultimate, the more resources you get back. Health, magic, and stamina, 46 points per ultimate cost. So the more expensive, the more sustain you have. So pace your ultimates. Use them at the right times, or as soon as you have them, as long as you've used the most expensive one you can, unless you're in trouble, in which case hit the small one. This is very important. Your Igneous Shields or your Molten Armaments, whichever one of the two you're using, are both Earthen Heart abilities. So for activating it, if you activate it once every 6 seconds, you'll get 3 ultimate. For activating it once every 20 seconds, well, actually you can spam that one, it doesn't matter. Every time you activate it, you get 5% extra weapon damage for you and your group for 20 seconds. So you'll notice when I fire this off, you'll see the little blue symbol there with the hammer in it. That is minor brutality. Lasts 20 seconds, but I can keep reapplying it. It just keeps overwriting itself. The only thing that doesn't overwrite itself is the ulti gain. That has a 6-second cooldown. And then, of course, if you use Igneous Shields or Molten Armaments or any Earthen Heart ability, you get stamina back. So if you're not already familiar with this, there's block, waste some stamina. When you block, oops, my food ran out. When you block, your stamina recovery is stopped. doesn't work. So now my stamina doesn't go up. But if I use igneous shields, yes it does. It does go up because it fills it up. So use that for sustain. You don't spam it too much because you'll run out. We don't have a lot of magicka, but use it when you need to and it will count. Dual wield, very simple. Get everything. There's a bleed, which has 8% chance to proc, does a hefty amount of damage, and also the dagger, because we're holding a dagger, we get a crit bonus as well. So this is a very important one, but above all, get everything on this tree, because they all help for sustain and damage. Bow. Get everything here, all of these, especially this one. I know it's the last one in the tree, but it makes you run faster if you dodge roll. However, we do have some potions that mean that this isn't necessarily as valid as it looks. But definitely get all of these. Sustain and damage and crit. Light armor. These three I honestly think are very important. And in actual fact, these two, because we are using magic abilities, not as a DPS kind of spammable, but we are using them to buff ourselves and to proc certain things. So we do need recovery to make sure we can do it more often. We do need reduction to cost to make sure that our cost is down a little bit. And if you want the resistances, of course you can get this, but these two are not relevant because we're not using 5 pieces. Medium armor, every single one of them. Get everything. Dodge roll reduction, cost reduction, weapon damage increase, everything. Get it all. Heavy armor, we're using 1 heavy as well. Physical resistance is a bit meh, but if you want it, get it. This one is so-so. Gives you back 108 of magic and stamina if you take a hit every 4 seconds, which is better than nothing. So it's up to you if you want that one, but I would definitely recommend this. 2% extra health for wearing a piece of heavy armor. We're using 1, we get 2%. Brilliant. These two, don't worry about them. They're for 5 pieces. Irrelevant. Very, very important. Max magicka recovery and stamina recovery. I said that wrong. Magicka recovery and stamina recovery but by 10% just for being a vampire stage 2 or higher. And this is the most crucial one. The lower your health, the less damage you take after vampire stage 3 or higher, which is why I stay 4 all the time. I can't bother with the messing around, put myself down to 3 every so often, only for it to go back up again. I just stay at 4 and just stay out of fire. Most fire in the game will one-shot you anyway, so if you stood in it, it's your own fault, whether you're a vampire or not. Ignore movement speed. This one's actually quite fun. This has nothing to do with the build. You crouch quicker, and you run full speed while crouching. So stage 4 vampire for that. And that's a good enough reason to do it. Let's see what else we've got. Fighters Guild. This is very important. Intimidating Presence reduces the cost of your Fighters Guild abilities, your stamina cost. This is a Fighters Guild ability. It costs less. Brilliant. Increases your weapon damage for each one slotted by 3%. This is one, 3%. This is one, 3% on top of the 5% that the ability already gives us. So that's actually 8% increased weapon damage. Take this straight away. 9 ultimate when you kill an undead Daedra or werewolf. Maelstrom's full of those, and so are most other dungeons. Every time you kill one, you get ultimate back. Obviously, the more ultimate we use, the more sustain we have. So that's really, really crucial. And this one increases the damage done to werewolves, undead, and Daedra for your Fighters Guild abilities, which means your Beast Trap and your Flawless Dawnbreaker hit harder, if they need to. Mage's Guild, don't need any of those. Ignore Equilibrium, I was messing with that. Get this, you take a synergy inside a group or trial or whatever, you get resources back. Don't be stupid and leave the synergy on the floor for somebody else to pick up. Take it. It's going to do some damage, it's going to get your resources back, or it's going to buff you or something, and just take them. This, max health and stamina and magic increase by 2% per type of armor worn. We're wearing 1 light piece, that's 1 type. We're wearing 5 medium, that's another type. And we're wearing 1 heavy, that's another type. Medium, light, and heavy. 3 types, 2% for each. 6% on all resources, which means our health, stam, magic are high. Well, the magic not so much, but the rest are. Nothing in here. Imperial, yes, I am an Imperial, as always. Max health increased by 12%, that's enormous, biggest bonus in the game. Stamina 10% increase, biggest bonus in the game again, same as the red guard but still the biggest bonus nonetheless. And for your melee attacks you have 10% chance to restore 6% of your max health, meaning the more health you have the higher the heal. I think it is around 500 or so, and I think it's not far off that, and it can crit as well. So your melee attacks can heal you alongside this heal if you're using this ability, this heal, and of course your actual vigor. Which also, by the way, if you are using igneous shields and for some stroke of luck you manage to weave in a light attack within the 3 seconds of major mending, yes, that Imperial passive here does get a boost to it. In fact, I think it's like a whole 1% or something. So if we pop Igneous Shield, oh, wrong button. Let's try again. Skills. I'm not going to get there quick enough. Try again. 7%. There you go. You get an extra percent of heals. Not massive, but it all contributes. All the small percentages are what makes the difference. Now, the gear. Interesting. If you've seen this already, you know what to expect. If you haven't, enjoy. And we're using 5 Swamp Raiders. Now, this is obtainable either solo or in a group because it's overland gear. Doesn't require a dungeon, doesn't require any trials, nothing. And I will show you where it drops. And what this does, when you deal magic damage, when you deal damage with a magic ability, your poison and disease abilities gain an additional 440 weapon damage, which means while that's active, this ability here, this one, our strongest single target dot, improves by 440 weapon damage. This one here improves by 440 weapon damage. So does this. So does this. And strangely enough, so does this enchant, this poison enchant, which, by the way, can proc a status effect. Status effect for poison is around 11 or 12 seconds, from what the buff time is accounting, of a poison death over time, which is about 1k a second, which doesn't sound that much, but it's additional damage nonetheless, and obviously this set boosts that as well. So 5 pieces of that. 1 axe, 1 dagger, both sharpened. This is a unique weapon, and I'll show you where that drops, and this is actually from a quest. So it's not like most RNG situations where you have to find a Swamp Raider's axe and it keeps dropping in the wrong trait. If you get the unique weapon, you'll get the right trait. If you do the quest, you'll get the right trait. You can't get it wrong. Back bar. Ignore the fact that that's a vicious Orphidian bow and it's pretty much useless. Let's just take into consideration that on the back bar you don't have to have any set piece. This is just one piece on its own. We'll get no bonuses for this. If you ignore the name of it, it is just a sharpened bow. Obviously you want it gold. I deconstructed some stuff earlier, my bad. But this is fine. You want sharpened because the initial hit of poison injection will be a little bit stronger than usual if it was a precise or something like that. But it's up to you. Crafted crafted bow on the back bar. Unless of course you've got a Swamp Raiders one, in which case you can keep the stamina on both bars. It's up to you. Just any bow. Favourite set. Vulcan Scoria. Medium. You don't have to do this. You don't have to have medium here. You can have a heavy here if you want instead. Basically, you have to distribute your 5 medium, 1 light, and 1 heavy amongst your sets. But the way I've done it is the most optimal for your resists, but it's neither here nor there if you don't have it in the right order. But basically, this is it. Infused on everything that is large and divines on everything that is small. So infused head, divine shoulders. And you'll also see the other set is Hundin's Rage, but we'll just make sure everything's the right trait. Infused on the big pieces, the chest, infused on the legs, divines on the hands, divines on the feet, divines on the belt. So you'll notice light belt, heavy chest, medium everything else. Everything enchanted for stamina. Now the reason we use Vulcan Scoria is for 2 reasons. One, because it gives us an extra bonus to max health, which in the Maelstrom you probably need if you're starting out. And 2, because you have an 8% chance if you're using damage over time, which we are using serious amount of damage over time, pretty much everything we're using, except for Flames of Oblivion, has a chance to make a fireball fall out of the sky and then burst where it lands, which is really, really nuts. Now, I know most Magickas tend to use this, and I know it doesn't crit anymore, although the AoE actually does, but we're a Dragon Knight and we get a bonus to fire, so for us, it's actually stronger than it would be on any other stamina class. Although you can switch this to Veladreth if you want. Yes, that will give you more weapon damage, and yes, that will give you more disease damage on that particular ability, but then we're getting a buff to fire anyway for this, so they end up being roughly the same. Your overall DPS is slightly higher with Veladreth, very slightly higher, but the actual proc itself doesn't do any extra damage because of the cooldown timer. That has 9 seconds, this has 5. They're very, very close. So honestly, for survivability and the fact that it also locks onto a target rather than being able to miss, because this will find its target and it won't miss, you actually benefit a little bit more from this. You survive more and you hit whatever you aim to hit. I will demonstrate that in a moment as well. Swamp Raiders, obviously 2 weapons, 3 jewelry. Hundan's Rage is the other 5-piece set. This is a crafted set, 6 trait crafted set. I will also show you where that crafting station is in Reaper's Mark specifically. There's a couple other places where it is, but I'll show you where the one I know is. This is very simple: weapon crit, max stamina, weapon crit, and a shit ton of weapon damage, alongside the other set, which is weapon crit, weapon damage, and stamina. So we've got the 3 main traits there: stamina, damage, and crit, and it all balances out to give us some nice hefty stats. Now I'm going to show you how to use the Swamp Raider set, but to do that I'm going to go to the skeleton in my house. Okay, first of all I'm going to show you how Vulcan Scoria works by hopefully getting some nice RNG on my side and getting it to fire straight away. But I'm going to turn away from the target as long as it fires. Vulcan Scoria could, not Vulcan Scoria, Veladreth could fire in that direction because I've done damage to something and I miss. Vulcan Scoria does not. Come on. Actually, we'll force it. Higher percentage on dots there. It's going to let me down. Boom. That didn't miss. That hit him. You hear that? I'll do it again. Turn away from him. Is he going to fire or what? There he goes. Boom. Can't miss. So, that's point 1 for using that. Now, the Swamp Raider set. This is the trick. Now, obviously, we have to do damage with a magic ability. Flames of Oblivion is magic, but it does damage. When that fires off, look at the buff timer. See that little poison crisscross swords there? That's a Swamp Raider, and you can see that my hands are glowing. So my weapon damage to my poison is increased by 440. But of course it will run out. So it reapplies every time I do the damage with a magic ability. But there is another way to proc it, for now, and it's been this way for a very long time. You'll see that Bloodthirst, the blue stabby thing on my L1 there, is not a magic ability. It is stamina, it is dual wield, but watch this. It's on. Slightly broken, yes. Should you take advantage of it? Probably. So that's basically how we proc it. We just rapid strikes and that's it. As long as you rapid strikes once every 10 seconds, that buff will stay with you. But for future's sake, for when they do fix it, we already have Flames of Oblivion on our bar now, so with this inside our rotation, doesn't matter if they do fix it because we're actually using it the way it's intended anyway. Hit the target. That won't fire unless you've aggroed something. 2, 1, now. Applies. So, what I said earlier about changing to Deadly Cloak on your front bar, if you needed to, for certain trial situations, obviously we wouldn't have that magic ability. Now, that's fine for now because we can just rapid strikes, boom, we're good. We can still proc it. But when they fix it, we're going to need a magic ability. So inside the trials, if you're not using the heavy attack buff, switch to volatile armor. As long as you're in the face of the enemy, and you will be because you are melee, all you have to do once every 10 seconds is fire the buff. Surprise! Did damage with magic. It procced. Now obviously you have to do it quite quickly because the back bar doesn't have the Swamp Raider set. Front one does. So you just turn it on and then switch before the first tick lands. As long as you keep that up every 10 seconds, you'll be fine. But you'll see the buff is now going to wear off, but it reapplies because the dot is longer than the duration. So that's future proof. Vulcan Scoria fires from that as well because it's a dot. Also, if you do choose to use that, which you can do in Maelstrom, your resists are really high, 20.9 and 17.2. It's not bad. Again, choices are what they are. Use whatever you're comfortable with. Where are we? Switch these back to the way I like it. Switch, switch, switch. Sorry, I'm in combat, so it won't swap my stuff. Incidentally, we will show you what the banner does. We'll get some ultimate built up. Now, another thing about igneous weapons or shields, what I just showed you a moment ago, look at my ultimate. Goes up 3 every second if you do a light attack. Light attack or heavy attack. But it also goes up if you use igneous shields once every 6 seconds. Wait for the shield to run out. 3, 2, 1, 0. Use it again. You have to be in combat though. You have to be in combat to get that bonus. Now let's get some multi up so I can show you the banner. I will also just quickly check on the weapons because I'm pretty sure they were glyphed. This one needs to have increased spell and weapon damage, so while you're weaving you actually improve your damage for 5 seconds with a 1 second cooldown afterwards. The actual cooldown is 6 seconds from the initial proc, but the thing lasts 5 seconds, so you can reapply it after 1 second gap of it finishing. The other is the poison, which I've said already puts on a status effect if you're lucky and does a decent amount of damage. Have I got enough for the banner yet? Nearly. Now, this is how you apply the banner. Don't just slam it on the ground, because that won't work. You'll put it down, it'll do a bit of damage, but it won't be optimal. What you need to do is have perhaps a rotation in place already. So if you look at the target skeleton, you'll see loads of dots already on him. When you get around to your last rotation, just before everything falls off, put it down now, everything that's already running is boosted. And then you reapply your rotation and you keep up that uptime of damage until it runs out, and then you just carry on as normal. And there you go, that's how that works. The failing that though, the other option is do exactly the same thing but put corrosive armor on and you go into god mode for 10 seconds where your damage is really, really high, but you can't die, or potentially you can't die for 10 seconds. And what the fuck? Spamming. That poison damage on, let's give it an example. Let's highlight this skill here. 1416 every second, excluding crits. They don't count for crits. So 14. Now put the skill buff on. 1522. Now let's put this on. You'll notice it's gone up 1652. So it's constantly going up. You have your weapon damage bonus on. Let's get this on as well. Ah, it's tricky. Let's proc the weapon damage at the same time. There it is. 1755. So while your weapon glyph is active, your swamp raider is active, and while your brutality buff is active, and of course you can add another buff to that, it's really, really high, and it can crit. I'm going to show you one more trick with that. Let's get minor brutality on as well. There you go, 1790 without any crits. Now of course with the beast trap down, we have increased crit damage by 10%, so that also contributes to it. It gets really, really strong basically. As long as this buff is on, that ultimate, this buff, oh sorry, dot, this one, all of it does extra damage. And of course, like I said, the target's got 0 penetration for you while this thing is running. So, how do we apply it all? In Maelstrom, not quite so important. Pretty much use your skills to your advantage. Make sure this is running all the time. Make sure every target has a poison injection on it so it can die faster. And also take advantage of your heavy attacks to keep your stamina up, and of course to do a decent amount of damage. The more poison you use, the more damage you use, and obviously more damage you apply, sorry. And obviously these things die fast in Maelstrom, so you haven't got time to do a full rotation. So just pay attention to your skills, play clever with your beast trap, keep your floor dots on, and make sure poison injection is definitely on everything, even if it's just that, and just keep that procced. But if you're in a trial situation and you are up against a boss that you're going to be fighting for a very long time, you're going to need some form of rotation. So what do? Now, this is what you do. You start off with the beast trap. I'll do it slowly first. You start off with a beast trap and Flames of Oblivion, because that doesn't fire until you attack it. So you can actually run up to the fight, activate that, ding that down. Volley, poison injection, Noxus Breath, light attack, igneous shields if you need to put that buff on, swap weapons. One heavy attack, Venom Claw, one heavy attack, Blood Craze, then you quick light attack, Rending, light attack, blood first, and then start this again. I'll show you what I mean. It's very tricky to start with. Okay, Flames of Oblivion first. Beast Trap. Volley, Poison Injection, Breath. Heavy attack, dot 1. Heavy attack, dot 2. Light, Rapid Strikes, Flame, Beast Trap, switch. Start again. Heavy, dot 1. Heavy, dot 2. Light, Rapids, Light, Flame, Light, Beast Trap, swap. Start again. Ultimate rotation now. Heavy, hit. Heavy, hit again. Light, Flame, Beast Trap, swap. And you just repeat that rotation, and in between then occasionally you fire an igneous shields just to keep up the minor brutality even. When it comes to the flame and the beast trap, try and get in a light attack before each one. So you see a heavy dot, light, flame, light, beast trap, swap. Here, light, poison, light, breath, swap. Heavy, dot, light, rapids, light, flame, light, beast trap, swap. I know it's a lot to take in, and if you need to rewind it, I would suggest doing so, but that's basically it. Just take into account that at the moment the skeleton's a little bit buggy, and so are mobs, because there's a bug that came over from PTS, and I'll try and show you that bug now. Some of you saw it on the stream the other night. Basically, if you heavy attack, then rapid strikes, that's fine. But if you heavy attack and hit rapid strikes now, like when his hands are up high, it will cancel the animation of the full heavy attack and go straight into a rapid strikes. That does still work, but the animation visually doesn't bloody show. It should, but it doesn't. On PTS this was around for about a day or so, so hopefully they're going to fix it on live soon, and then we're just back to normal. Damage is exactly the same, but the visuals mess with your eyes a bit, and I'll give you an example of that. See? Now watch. Rapid strikes numbers came up. No rapid strikes. Boom, there's the numbers. See, it's bugged. So now you have to extend it a little bit. But that's only for visual purposes. If you can count it and you know exactly where it's landing, you can do stuff like this. I'll get a light and a dot in there as well. See, it did everything. Heavy attack, rapid strikes, dot light. All there. You just can't see it. So just take into consideration that if you're doing something like that and you think you did it right, and all the numbers flew up but the animation didn't work, you did do it correctly. It's just Zenimax with a nice bug. So just pay attention to that one. The other way to ignore that, especially if you're a beginner or relatively new, is just finish your heavy attack. To be honest, it's not a massive loss if you're relatively new. And to be honest, in testing, as far as DPS is concerned, on a 34k DPS test with everything going smooth, I then did it with full heavies, without animation cancelling, and only lost about 1.5k. So don't worry, just do whatever suits you best and whatever's easiest for you to understand. Especially in the maelstrom, because nobody's in there, nobody's watching you. It's your run, and if you complete it, who cares how you did it? As long as you didn't cheat. Okay, let's jump into the champion points. Now this obviously is for max CPs. If you're much lower CPs, then you're going to have to distribute these a little differently, but try and just half them, I guess, so that they're evenly distributed and you can get the most out of them as possible. Now here we go. This is the same as my previous DK build actually, because they're using relatively the same sort of setup or skills if you like, and also we're using a lot of rotation based things that are very similar. Now this is for your heavy and light attacks to increase the damage to them. We light attack or heavy attack between every single skill, and you should be, because it gains ultimate and it does a lot of damage. This also contributes to single target hits. Single target hits, or direct damage if you want to call it that, is stuff like light attacks, heavy attacks and Flames of Oblivion for this particular build. So these are very powerful, and that's why I put them there. 56 Infirmitage increases all of our death over time damage by 20%. Anything much more than 60, you're going to spend a lot of points with nearly no return, so be careful how you distribute these points. 56 is very nice. Same goes for Mighty as well. And that goes up to like 13-14%, something not very much. Maybe even, what does that go up to? I've forgotten. Let's get rid of these points a minute. Might go up to 15, but I think it takes a long time to get there. Yeah, it does. It goes up to 15, which is crap. You can see there 3% for what, 44 points. No thank you. So it's 56 here, 56 here, 31 in here for 13% increase to your crit damage, and then a little bit of penetration bonus as well. In a trial you may not need quite as much, but this should balance out to about the right amount. I mean, there's loads and loads of buffs and debuffs in a trial where you could get to 0 another way, but most of those methods are currently not being used, so this should balance out quite nicely, and especially if you're solo as well, this is absolutely fine. Ironclad, this protects you from direct damage, light, heavy attacks, fireballs, that kind of stuff. 66 in Hardy, 66 in Elemental Defender. Now this will protect you against most damage, and some trials obviously you need to put more in one or the other, but a good all-rounder is this setup here, alongside a decent amount of dot reduction, and there's lots of that. Favourite passive, when you res people, 15% less damage taken. That's more for group content, but it's very, very strong. And to get that, I put 10 points in quick recovery, increasing my heals that I receive, including the ones that I do, because if I heal, I receive the heal, and this boosts it. 30 points into Warlord, just to add to the break free reduction cost. You can put more into Tumbling if you want, but this, you do get stunned, it helps. 75 into Tenacity to give you more back off your heavy attacks. Don't put the extra 25 points in here to make it to 100, it's only 1%, it's rubbish. Increased recovery, same applies. 75 points to you a flat 14%. Anything more than that, it's going to take you 25 points to get another 1%. Use them somewhere else. Like this. You do dodge rolling a lot as a stamina, so points into reduction to cost for dodge rolling. Makes sense. Okay, now I'm going to quickly jump into the first round of Maelstrom. I will note, by the way, that if you are struggling with sustain, specifically, you don't have to use Vulcan Scoria. This isn't set in stone, this is just what I preference. What you can do is you can switch to stuff like the Storm Fist. Now the one piece Storm Fist does give you stamina recovery, so that will contribute to your sustain. Also there is another set, where are you? Got one on me somewhere. Bloodspawn should be in my bag, there it is. This also contributes to stamina recovery. So if you put one of those each on, you actually get a really nice amount. You get like 260 recovery on top of what you've already got. And obviously Vampire and Potions and all the rest of it contribute to that. So that's an option you can take if you choose to. Also another one that I haven't really mentioned in the past is this set here. Now it used to be about 1.9k spell and physical resistance, now it's 2.5, so it's quite strong. Now if you put this on, the full set, not only do you gain 1% extra health, but you also gain major and minor, major resolve and major ward, which is the same as our resist buff that we currently do not use. So you can have this on all the time and be tanky as hell, plus get the additional extra resist from the first piece bonus. So if you are struggling and you have these, the shoulder and the helmet, try this out, you might like it. You take a lot less damage in a Maelstrom, and elsewhere actually, in fact, as well. So that's also a choice. Just some options to throw out there. Now, like I said, we're going to jump into Maelstrom. I'll do one round just to show you that it's not that scary, and we'll wrap this up afterwards. Now, don't worry if you die in a Maelstrom, it happens to the best of us. The lucky thing is for a lot of you now, or for everyone in fact, is that you can save your progress now. You didn't used to be able to do that, not in the very beginnings, so I won't tell you how many hours I spent in there, don't need to have to reset it. But there's many people that have used this build in the past, like the previous versions of the build, previous patches, who have succeeded Maelstrom with this. So persist and you'll be joining the club with those. Now, here we go. I will say, obviously, I should have said this at the beginning of the video, but the DK is a little advanced in terms of stamina classes, because it's quite, you have to pay a lot of attention, it's quite complex in some places, in comparison to like the Stam sword, where you just put your buffs on and spam rapid strikes. But if you persist with it, you'll really enjoy it. DKs are a lot of fun. Keep poison injection on everything. And rapid strikes did go off, but it didn't show me the animation. Perfect. I'm going to switch my potions actually to use a favourite one of mine. Where is it? There it is. We kill this boss. No, we kill the scamp first. Oop. What is going on? He died. Sorry, my screen frozen. Perfect. Something you don't want to do when you're trying to demonstrate. Oh, that breath. You see it's on him already. It was before he spawned. Because you can hit the portal with it. Where'd he go? Remember, if you get in trouble, do a rapid strikes. Stay out of that poison shit. It's not rapid strikes, it's bloodthirst, but you know what I mean. It'll keep you up. Every last hit of that skill, so long as you actually connect, will heal you. Oops, double casted that, my bad. Where did he go? So I hit him with a dot then, but that dot is to heal me. It wasn't to kill him. You'll see my health is going up constantly in a minute. Obviously I threw a vigor in, but let's put this on him. And this one. And my health, I'll heal while I'm damaging him. That was bad. So I'm going a little slow because I want you to try and see what's going on. Not really too much effort. I'm not going mental. I'm not spinning around the room really, really fast. You just pace it. Take your time. Except for this dude. Give him some help. Stay out of that red shit. See that rapid strikes bug come in then? It's because I'm trying to fire it off too quickly. And as you can see, Vulcan scoring never misses his target. Good night. Now, you can do that a lot smoother, obviously, but I want you to see how things are applied. Like, keep your poison dot up all the time, either by rapid strikes or by this skill here. The damage is really high. Like, most of the time I'm not actually hitting the target, I'm just dotting and running away, which was also a valid tactic. And the skill, sorry, not the skill, the potion that I quickly switched to, I did forget to mention a little while ago, this is one of my favourites for Maelstrom, especially on this particular build. If you're using Flames of Oblivion on the front bar, you don't need a crit pot, so I use speed pots instead. This will increase your recovery, increases your weapon damage, and increases your speed, so you can get out of trouble quick. Here, this one is a crit potion, basically the same, but instead of speed you have crit. I use this if I'm using Deadly Cloak instead of Flames of Oblivion on the bar, but the choice is yours. Personally in Maelstrom, I like to be able to do this and run really, really fast, because you can get from one side of the arena to the other in no time and get yourself out of trouble. Okay, so hopefully that helped. Yeah, Maelstrom's tricky, I'm not going to lie, but with practice you'll be absolutely fine, especially with this kind of setup as well, because your sustain is pretty good, your damage is decent, and you've also got a decent amount of survivability as far as your health and all the rest of it is concerned. Plus you heal off of your damage, as long as you apply at the right times. A little bit tactical, but with practice you'll understand where you can and can't get away with it. I almost copped a couple one-shots in there, but a mixture between screen freezing and not paying attention, but that will happen also. You'll get a lot of unfortunate deaths in the Maelstrom, which are completely out of your control, but it happens. And then also you'll do what I still do and make stupid mistakes. But don't worry about it, stick with it, you'll get the shiny stuff you want. Incidentally, the Hunter's Rage set we're using is very, very powerful, especially the fact that you can craft it and use whatever weight in armor you prefer. Obviously we have a heavy chest and a light belt, which is freedom to do so because it's crafted. There is one more crafted set that you can use alongside this, because our other set does have decent crit, and that is a twice spawn star. Now if you use that instead, that's actually a lot stronger. Not so much in terms of damage. The damage is about the same. Twice spawn is actually a tiny bit more, because where we drop our weapon damage from the Hundin's Rage, we gain the Shadow Munda Stone, because you use 2 Munda Stones with the twice spawn, Thief and the Shadow. So where our crit will be a little bit lower, our crit bonus, the damage, will be higher, and that will meet somewhere in the middle with the 300 weapon damage that we lose. But although it's slightly higher in DPS, something that it does offer is the fact that we get an extra 1k magicka, so we can use our skills a little more often, and also we get 1k max health, which will push us to 21k, which is absolutely nuts for a stamina, especially with the damage that we're already pumping out. With the amount of damage we're doing, then having 21k health, that's really strong and very survivable in Maelstrom and Trials and all the rest of it. You're the last one to go down if you're in with a bunch of staminas. Not for everybody, but of course if you're struggling with health, this will help a lot, and you might even like it more in comparison. But it's up to you. That's a choice you can make. But this does require 9 traits, so you probably have to dig deep in your pockets or be crafting for quite some time to get it. But I'm sure there's a few friendly people out there willing to help you make it. Anyway, hopefully that helps people that are trying to get into the DK, specifically towards endgame, or even just like sort of mid CP level, and also the ones who have already seen this in the past, now knowing that obviously it's still viable in the Morrowind patch, because there was some concern about that. Now, if you do have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. I generally answer about 95%, maybe 99% of questions or comments. It's just that sometimes, if there's a lot of them coming through, I miss a couple. So if I have done, I don't do that intentionally. There's a lot to do. But thank you all very much for watching, first of all, and of course for subscribing. And if you're not already subscribing, please do hit that button. It is free. Also, if you want to help support the YouTube channel itself, furthermore outside of YouTube, there is a Patreon page where you can receive perks like early access to build videos and stuff like that a couple of days before they're released. Also, there's a donation point in the description, and I will be running much more regular streams now, so get involved in some of those if you have the time. So also don't forget to check out the website and the Facebook page, and once again, thank you all very much for watching, and bye bye.